The aim today in our panel is to keep it light. This morning we've had a bunch of content. We've sort of been in varying depths of complexity and so forth, but this panel, it's going to be light, and we're going to talk a little bit about these four companies who are succeeding in the industry and the individuals at the helm of those four companies. So, thank you. First, we're going to start off with introductions, although Bill did just give a couple introductions there. Maybe we'll start at the far end with you, Marc, and maybe you can introduce yourself, tell us about your company and so forth.
Marc Gaudrault is CEO of TechSavvy Solutions. TechSavvy, for those who don't know, we've been around since January '98, primarily focused on residential customers. We have total subscriber base roughly 250,000 and just under 500 employees. So that's in a nutshell.
Thank you. Michael, can you introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Michael Garbe. I'm the president of Accelerated Connections. I founded the company in 2000. Our focus is on business customers. We have a national footprint. We're connected to every major ILEC, and basically our sweet spot is we look for companies that have at least 100 locations or more that need to be connected across the country.
Thanks. Pete?
Peter Rocca, President and CEO of Start Communications. We've been around since the early mid-90s as an ISP, and before that, back, if people remember the bulletin board days, was our origination as a software development company. We based out of London, Ontario, employees about 50 employees and just under 20,000 subs.
And what was you said there was a software development company. What was that company called?
It was Multi-Board Communications.
All
So
right.
back in the bulletin
Bit
board,
of a change.
it made sense. Yeah, it was a rebrand in the 90s.
Okay. Mel?
Yeah, Distributel Communications. It's 25 years old this past January, and we started out in the long distance business. We were at that for many years until we realized that we better get into something else. And the key to being a successful ISP is to start out as a very successful long distance company and then throw most of your money away in this business.
For the record, I agree with certain parts of that, but not all. All right, let's get started. So each of your companies are very unique from one another. The products that you sell in some cases are similar, but you've chosen to market yourselves and position yourselves against customers or towards customers quite differently. So I wanted to first ask you, I'll start with you, Marc, who is your target customer and what makes them unique?
You know, in a strange way, back in the day, and let's say 10, 15 years ago, TechSavvy, I mean, it speaks for itself. So technology savvy users, back then we used to call them geeks. And it turns out that today the average person is a geek. We're all sort of wired in all sorts of ways, wirelessly or otherwise. And so in a lot of ways, the strategy for us has been, it seems the whole world is sort of converging on technology. And so in a roundabout way, it ended up that we got it right, sort of, it seems anyway, for now. So our average, customers are sort of, early adopters, if you will, of technology really today. So.
Okay. Thank you. Maybe I'll continue with this line of question, but tailor it a little bit. And I'm going to ask you, Mel, along the way, as you've determined who your target customer was, have you had to change that focus or modify it a little bit to suit the customers that you felt you were best to attract?
Constantly. Constantly. We started out selling single hop or very short haul long distance to businesses, then just in the Toronto area. Then we found that there was a market in other cities, so we expanded into other cities geographically. Then we changed into a residential play. So we did that for quite a while. Then we evolved from the type of long distance we were doing to broader network offering. And it's just constantly changing, the networks and the products, the customers and the products.
And were those changes in response, or were they planned, or sort of what sort of timeline did that follow?
It's kind of funny, in having been in business for 25 years, people are always asking, but what's the long-term game plan? What's the overall strategy? Where are you trying to be? And to be honest, over the course of the time, it's really been more opportunistic. You know, something comes up, it looks good, let's chase that. And there hasn't been a cohesive direction, often to the chagrin of people within the company, but that's the way we play it.
Michael, I skipped over you earlier. I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask you a similar question. As you've changed along the way, has it been intentional, sort of, I'm going to do this in a couple of years, or has it been in response to things that have happened in the business and sort of fast changing kind of things?
For our company, it's always been in response to customer demand. I think that's the same for all of us. In the beginning, we had a very, what I would call generic product. It was a static IP address, DSL-based product. What made us unique is that we had a national footprint. That doesn't make us as unique as we used to be. There are many other players that are now building or already have a national footprint. So we had to take a look at what the customers were looking for next. And a lot of that revolved around reducing costs for more highly secure networks. So we came up with private networks that were delivered across the country using various forms of MPLS across all the different carriers. And we were able to do that at a very effective price point. It wasn't cheap. We're nowhere near the cheapest name on the street. But compared to the early MPLS networks, it was far, far less expensive. And we delivered huge cost savings to our customers with this methodology.
All right, so Pete, your hand was up just slightly longest, so we're going to ask you. So in 6 years, what will your company look like?
It's a great question. You know, I think we're going to see a continued focus on Canadians being more involved in their choice of the carriers, and more vocal and active in ensuring that they have competitive options. I think that we'll continue to see that for at least the next 5 or 6 years, and I think people are demanding, or at least what we're seeing in our customers demanding, a more personal level. And I think you'll see the internet become more personal, not only in terms of the type of personalization that's available on the web, but in the type of personalization that they expect from their service provider. I think it's going to be more than just the bits. If anyone's going to survive the commoditization of this market, it has to be a little more soft, a little more touchy-feely. And I think that's where we'll continue to grow. It's been the core of us for almost the last 20 years, and it's been successful. And I'm hoping that in 5 years, consumers will still be valuing that type of personal touch.
Michael?
I think that in 5 years from now, if we're successful, we're going to change the conversation. And what I mean by that is, I don't really need to do a poll in the room, but if I were to ask each of you, how many of you have great service? You put up your hands. How many of you have great feeds and speeds? And if we're all the same, offering great service and great feeds and speeds, then the main differentiator between all of us becomes our price and our marketing and things like that. So from our perspective, we're never going to have the money to do the best marketing. We're never going to be the largest. So we're going to have to change the conversation. And within our company, we've started to actively pursue this. So the last thing I want the people in my organization to be talking about in 5 years is the speed of the broadband, the price of the broadband. That's irrelevant. That should be irrelevant to us. What it ought to be are the applications that we deliver over the broadband, the way we manage it, the way we monitor the customers, the voice services. Can we offer you some cloud with that? Can we offer you some data center with that? Et cetera, et cetera. And the last thing we'll mention is, oh, by the way, you're going to need some broadband with that. Don't worry, it's included. So, and not let them worry about it or anything else. So we're going to change the game. We're going to change the nature of how it's going to be, and that's how we'll continue to differentiate ourselves in 5 years' time.
Marc, do you want to try the same question?
Yeah, I think consumers in general need to be in the driver's seat, and we need to listen to people and let the need drive where we're going. And so technology is going to continue to evolve. There's things that are happening that we were just talking earlier today, a Snapchat, this kind of stuff, right, where you send a picture and then it disappears 5 seconds later. I don't know about you guys, but my kid having that, I don't know. So all sorts of things are happening that are changing, the dialogue. And so to a degree, I think the idea is to listen, to pay attention, and to respond and hold ourselves accountable and have a back and forth conversation and go from there.
Mel, do you want to take a second and
Sure.
talk about your crystal ball?
Well, one of the things as part of our transition over the years that we were talking about before was when the long distance business started to evaporate from right in front of our eyes, and we realized that when we talk about what was the next big thing for ourselves, we realized there wasn't going to be one next big thing, but we would be doing several things. And each of those several things has a different future. So one branch, and I won't go into great detail, but one of our branches is our ThinkTel division, which looks after enterprise and wholesale clients, and we've had some great successes there. So I see that, in the future, more large contracts, large customers, higher caliber, and it's very exciting there. But on the consumer side, we're also pursuing new things there. We're getting into show business. We're pursuing a broadcast distribution undertaking that will be delivered through IPTV, and who knows where that's going to lead. The whole world of entertainment delivery is changing through the internet, and I don't know what the opportunities will be, but it should be fun.
For a moment there, I thought you were... Hello? For a moment there, I thought you were going to offer to sing. So you're jumping into show business.
Could happen.
This panel's getting interesting.
Are we having wine at lunch?
Let's, I'm sure we could arrange. Let's change directions a little bit again. We've talked about growth. Growth is very exciting, but it also can be painful. Let's talk about the hard parts, the scaling issues that you've had. You guys have all grown amazingly in the past number of years. What's been the hardest stumbling blocks from a scaling standpoint for your businesses? We'll start at the end with you, Marc, and we'll work our way across.
As we've grown, there are things that pull you away from exactly that. So the idea is, how do you grow, how do you scale, and at the same time have that high touch sort of feeling. So for us, it's really been internal efficiencies, building up systems that can allow us to do that in a seamless way, where the consumer, our customers aren't really affected by it. But it's definitely these factors as well are highly impacted by the regulatory environment. The incumbents going one direction or another, us having to react to it. These are all big factors that, scaling-wise, as you're hiring a bunch of staff, expecting you're going to grow, and it turns out you're going to use them for tech support because your connections are offline, this kind of stuff. So, then that impacts your capital plans, so on and so forth. So,
All right. Michael, can I ask you the same question? As you've scaled your business, what have been the painful points, and how have you addressed that?
So this year has been a great year and an unbelievably painful year at the same time. We had the good fortune to close a lot of business at the beginning of the year, and in the first 6-7 months, we added several thousand new business customers, which was great. Unfortunately, each of those customers wanted high touch, like they've never wanted it before. They wanted feet on the street, which we didn't have. They wanted installation capabilities of Wi-Fi access points, which we didn't have, and they wanted us to do it all. And in most cases, they asked me, and I'm the head sales guy in the company, so I said, "You want it? We'll do it." So and we didn't have the capability to do it, and we had to figure out how to do it. So it was a lot of outsourcing, and whenever we had to have those customers or those new connections come up and call in, we had to have the support people on staff to do it. We just couldn't hire new support people at the time because we couldn't afford the time out to train them. And we expected that once we got over this big hump and everybody put in the extra service and the extra time in the support desk, for example, that the call volume would decline. And it didn't. All the installations were done. There was no more heavy touching of all the customers, and the call volume stayed the same. So we were stressed with that, and we had to add a lot of support people really quickly. We have to balloon up provisioning from time to time and then let it go down a little bit. And all of those things put a tremendous stress on the organization. We've been able to catch up on the support side. We've been able to streamline processes so that we can handle more on the provisioning side.
Did you recognize that inflection point when it occurred, or only in retrospect? And Was there one or many? How did you recognize you were at an important point right there?
I think there's
Or
been-
did you?
Well, there's been quite a few, and I think many of us have gone through those same inflection points. A lot of the emerging technology that has been disruptive, going from, I remember back when we started, knocking on people's doors, trying to convince them or explain to them what a website was and why they wanted one. We put on a lot of feet miles, especially Daryl, who's now our COO. And there was a lot of this education factor, I think we've gone through the dial-up phase, the high-speed phase, and now everyone knows what it is that they want. And I think the bigger inflection point that we've seen is kind of the wholesale change of Canadians in terms of what they expect. And I think Canadians have been much more involved. I think the inflection point we see now with the direction of industry, the direction of citizens and what they want, that's the big inflection point that I find really interesting right now. And I think there's this new awareness of, and I don't know if it's even just the word awareness, but this new expectation of what Canadians want from their service provider. And that's the big one that I think, many of us might not have seen coming, and it wasn't until, the UBB hearing and the uprise of some of the people. That was the one that kind of took me by shock, and I think was a big inflection point.
Okay.
Mel, same question to you.
Inflection points?
You've had a lot of changes over the years. Your business has evolved several times, and
Yeah.
it seems to always be taking on a new face. Do you recognize those things as upcoming, or do you only see them in retrospect? Or?
No, they sort of hit you on the side of the head really hard. And then, and then you say, oh, I've got something else I better be dealing with. We've done the transition into the ISP space through acquisition. And acquisition presented its own set of challenges. We were more geographically dispersed, and we had legacies of 3 or 4 different companies to contend with, and trying to bring that all together, it's been massive. But as an inflection point, I don't know, it's been one 25-year inflection point.
Okay. Very fair. Mel, I'll pile on with one more question quickly, and then I'm going to head back across the panel. As your company grew from those very first days to where it is today, what did your company lose along the way, and how are you trying to get that back?
Well, we lost this sort of one small group that knew about everything. We don't want to get small again. We want to transition into a structure that serves our needs now.
Marc, I'll ask you the same question.
I think I don't think we've really lost. As far as the customer, I don't think we've lost much there. Internally though, I agree with you, Mel, that I know for us, especially around the 100 employee mark, you really got to manage things very differently, and you got to delegate, and you got to impart your vision, and you got their different styles of management and all this stuff. So there are real logistical factors that come with growth, and echoing what I was saying earlier about how do you keep that high touch with your customer and engaged in that, all of that stuff becomes a very different proposition when it's not the same 2, 3, 4 people that are sort of can get a view of it all, right? And so you got people here and there. This whole thing is a different proposition. So, but I mean that's the work. I mean that's exactly what we're signed up for. That's what we're all about, and that's that for us. We really that's what we've been working on for the so.
Okay, thanks. We've talked a lot about how the industry is changing and how it's going to look differently in 3 years and 5 years, or 6, I think we agreed on here. What is the future of the channel, though?
I'll answer that in 2 parts. First off, we made a dramatic step forward as a community 4 years ago with the formation of the Canadian Network Operators Consortium. And it was a bunch of guys, and I remember the informal discussions. I remember the walks behind 151 Front. I remember the what are we going to do about this? This sort of feeling of desperation that we felt that we were powerless. and we just said, well, we've just got to try and do it together. We've got to come together. We've got to work together. And not only was it just the notion that we would come together and work together, but people stepped up. And so many of our community have stepped up. We don't, even though we're all competitors with one another, none of us really view each other as competitors. We're all doing things to help each other out. Every once in a while, one of us has to take a shot in the gut because we know it helps the larger community, and we do it. And I've seen a lot of selflessness that's really resulted in tremendous gains for the community overall. And there's no doubt that's helped out. And I can't remember the second thing I was going to say. So
That's fine.
Can I add some praise to CNOC as well?
Sure. Okay.
No,
Go ahead.
I want to say CNOC has been one of the best things for Distributel. We've had a history of regulatory participation even back to our founding when Bell tried to shut us down. But every year, something would come up and we'd have to, or every regulatory proceeding that comes up, we'd have to eye it and say, do we have the resources, the energy to devote to this? And we really had to pick and choose our battles. But having all come together in CNOC, every tariff notice gets reviewed and every battle can be fought, and it's made a big difference in terms of lightening the load on our companies individually. So I think CNOC's been wonderful for the industry. Sorry.
That's fine.
Had to get that plug in.
That's fine. All right.
I can color that a bit differently if you'd like.
All right. Go ahead.
In a good way. So I totally agree. CNOC, there's a lot of work left to be done. I think, past that, we need to keep reinforcing, competition and all that. But, the world is changing, right? All these new technologies, people connecting in different ways. The social behavior, all the ways that we all live today is significantly different than 100 years ago, but we're still all the same people, right? So how do we live in this new technology, in this world of technology, all connected and machine to machine, cars that think and that will bounce you between the lines until you wake up, tell you to have a cup of coffee. So I think the ways we can, I think we have a role there, right? We have to hold ourselves accountable, and I think those are some of the things that eventually, if we can get past some of the squabbling between the incumbents and all that stuff, right? So I think there's a lot of positive stuff there. I know us, I'm sure others as well, but locally, especially in Chatham, we do a lot of community stuff, and we're trying to do all sorts of other things there. But I think those are some of the areas that I see that we could all work together and that improve things. So
There are a lot of ISPs now. Some say that they hope there's going to be many more. Some say, nope, I think that's enough. What do you guys think? Do we have the right number?
Absolutely needs to be as many ISPs as there needs to be. That said, I think some of the challenges that face ISPs can't be done alone, and I think there'll be a continued cooperation, or whether or not there'll be more acquisitions or mergers or ISPs just working together in partnerships in order to tackle some of the larger issues. I know that there's a number of ISPs that'll be chatting about some shared cost facilities that they might be interested in, and those types of things. I think, it doesn't matter the number of ISPs. It's really, whether or not that ISP is providing value to the customer that they're serving.
Okay. Michael, what do you think?
I'm going to largely agree with Peter on this. However, I'm going to say that one of the trends that we noticed as we were growing along the way is that it was really hard to get the attention of our suppliers and customers, quite frankly, when we were small. We weren't taken seriously. We weren't able to get the attention that we needed, quite frankly, to grow to the size that we wanted to grow. And that made it tougher. I understand that there's a lot of ISPs today that are not growing, and the four of us up here are fortunate enough to not be in that situation. I don't know that any of us got into this business thinking, I want to be an ISP for the rest of my life. That's not I think what most of us want to do. We're in technology. We're envisioning some sort of an outcome for it, And I think that you're seeing it now. There's a lot of consolidation in the market. There will be, I think that the future holds a lot of consolidation as well.
Anybody else want to chip in on that one?
I just don't like the ISPs that buy my unlimited residential internet and then set up shop. But everybody else
Okay,
is
but
fine.
other than that, all right. Mark, anything to add to that?
No, look,
All
I
right.
think, yeah, it's good.
Is there another company in our industry that you look at and you look up to, you'd like to see your own company emulate, you see some important values there that you'd like to adopt? Can you think of any one in particular? I'll start with you at the end, Mark.
Sure. I mean, so first off, I think we try to be a leader, and we certainly have done a number of things over the years that, we tend to march by the beat of our own drum to a degree. But a lot of it is premised on the idea of people, connecting with people, treating people right, our customers, our staff. So yeah, in general, I think it really boils back down to the very thing that's made us successful, right? And so, and that's not exclusive to us, right? I mean, so.
Okay. All right. Michael?
There are bits and pieces of all sorts of companies that I envy and would like to emulate, whether it's a company culture thing, whether it's the speed of their growth, whether it's a service offering that they've been able to master that we can't yet, whether it's a price point that they're able to achieve, hopefully higher than we've been able to achieve for the same product. And so when we see a company out there and they're selling what we largely view as the same thing that we're selling, and they're doing it for twice the price, I can't help but wonder, how are they doing that? And why can't I do that? And that would help fund even more growth.
Okay. Pete?
Well, I think Mark said, there's a lot of success, not only on the panel, but, in this room, a number of companies that are doing things very well. Whether or not it's, an impressive customer base or the professionality of the company or their legacy or innovative products that they're doing, there's a lot to be learned from people in this industry. And I think the cooperation that, that this industry has seen over the last, especially 4 years, has been tremendous. That said, I think it's important, for us to, we've held to our core values in terms of what we want to be, and I think it's important, for everyone to hold true to what it is that they want to be and work to achieve that vision. There's, I'll misquote it. I don't remember exactly what it was, but something along the lines of, every day you're looking at your competitor, you're not focused on your own business, and I think there's a lot of truth to that saying. So for us, we try to be aware and cognizant of what everyone else is doing, but at the same time, I think it's important to be true to who we want to be and work every day to achieve that.
Okay. And Mel, what about you? Is there another company in our industry that you look up to or would like to see your company emulate, et cetera?
Other than Primus?
Of course, other than Primus, yes. Sorry, I figured we would just...
Well, no, I look back to my first 10 years in telecom at Bell Canada, and surprisingly, the structure, the organization that's in place has always been a model for things that we could do, not necessarily that we wanted to be Bell Canada, but just, well, in Bell they do it this way, so it's kind of a reference point. But actually, I like Michael's answer the best. You look around to different companies and you see what you admire in them, and you pick and choose, just like we're going to do TV channels.
Fantastic. Again, we're going to change direction a little bit. We're going to talk about you guys. Tell us what blogs you read or books that you're focused on, or tell us about that kind of stuff. Michael, you're looking right at me like you have an answer, so we'll start with you.
Well, first of all, it's a good question. It's a hard question, and who's kidding who I've lost hair over it. So, but the answer is, I don't think there's one place you can look. You've got to pick up a snippet here, a snippet there. You got to stay within your interests. I'm more into strategy and, let's say, the sociology of the sale. So I might, be a little more interested in a Malcolm Gladwell book than perhaps a technology book. That's not really my thing. But I want to understand personally what makes people think the way they do, and how we can sort of stay ahead of that curve and maybe even influence it.
Okay. Pete, how do you stay current?
I love my Slashdot. I've been, I'm one of the, I think I'm a 4-digiter on Slapshot. I've been around for a while. It's a good cross-section in terms of, technology stories, political stories, and amongst, the articles that I come there, every once in a while I'll come across something else that's been sent to me, but I don't really frequent a lot of different blogs.
Fair enough. Mel?
Yeah, nor I. I don't know, it seems that over time, more and more media sources find your email. So I find I get so much news about the industry and things just coming in by email, whether it's seminars and courses or conferences, newsletters. So there's a constant barrage of information coming your way, and it's just a question of sifting through and trying to keep an eye out for what's really important. When it comes to the technical stuff, the acronym du jour is, I think now everybody's writing about software-defined networks. Somehow or other, software-defined networks seem to be something that we talked about 15 years ago. I have no idea, what the latest buzzword, but it's to try and sort of sift through it and see if there's anything really significant in it, or if it's just the latest protocol.
Well, during lunch, I'm sure that there are some gentlemen here from Cisco who will take you aside and explain all of the nuances there. But
My
Marc, what
engineers are here.
Okay, well, you guys can all get together. But Marc, how do you stay current? I know that you're very active in a lot of social media. We see that. But how do you stay current on how to run your business and so forth? Where are you getting the new ideas from?
Oh boy. The bulk of my time I spend exactly the way you're saying. Basically our customers, they're the best. We keep, internal systems to monitor stuff. And like, what are you talking about? Our customers, when there's something wrong, we hear about it loud and clear. So as far as running the business, same sort of deal, except with our staff. A lot of paying attention, listening. Here's the direction. Okay, how can I help you? Achieve your goals and this kind of thing. It's really driven out of our customers. What's on our customers' minds, and I know it probably sounds, I don't know, cliche or whatever, but I literally wake up in the morning and I'm sort of getting feedback from all of the above to see where things are at, and that inevitably always leads me to sort of the most important thing right now.
You wake up in the morning at 4:30. You like, what's that? What's that like, Marc?
I guess it depends on your vision of what life and work is.
Are they the same as an entrepreneur?
Well, for me, they certainly are. I really, the thing that makes me tick, that I really enjoy, is making a difference, like really helping and witnessing. Oh my God, thank you so much. That's been such a help. Even though it's been excruciating dealing for sometimes with that customer, right? So, but I actually enjoy that. So for me, it's built around that. So I wake up in the morning and at lunch and in the evening, and that's kind of what I do, and I'm okay with that. I'm kind of like, what, that's good purpose. I'm good with that.
Okay, Michael.
I don't think that the work-life balance that the four of us have is that dramatically different from the work-life balance that everybody else has in the room. We're all unbelievably thankful for mobile technology that allows us to be anywhere and respond if we need to. As a business owner, I don't always have to write long soliloquies of an answer. I see a question come up from a customer or from a member of my team, and you can quickly answer it, and people, the families just learn to live with it. I'd hate to have to expose somebody who didn't know about it to it now, but they're just used to it. And my personal way of doing it is whenever I think of something I want to tell somebody, I'll write them an email at that moment. I don't necessarily need them to action it. It's just I'm going to forget it if I don't deal with it right now. So unfortunately, a lot of people on my team are used to seeing emails from me at very odd hours, just because that's what, get up in the middle of the night for a second and I forgot to do that. And so you send an email and so you're always shocked when you get an email back.
This is great. I'm getting a good picture of the work-life balance here. All right. Pete, talk to us about your work-life balance.
Well, if you had asked that question 6 months ago, I think it would sound exactly like this. I've been really making a conscious effort actually for the last 6 months, and my wife will wholeheartedly disagree with me, but in terms of...
She's right over there and she's shaking her head
She doesn't even know what you're going to say, and she disagrees with you.
already.
There goes Pete's business.
Yeah.
Panelist.
So I mean, it's the same thing. I can't tell you how many times, people get an email from me at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and then they'll get another one from me at 8 o'clock in the morning. But I really have been trying to make a conscious effort, and I think a lot of it, and Marc had touched on it earlier, is getting the right people in the role and being able to delegate. And I think for me, that's what's been the market change that I've really been trying to ensure that there's the right people in there and that you can rely on them and you can delegate on them, and maybe not check your email quite as often. Maybe you can put your phone away at for a few hours around dinner time, and that's what I've been working on anyways.
All right. Mel, I'm going to ask you, and then we're going to move to a final question and wrap. So do you have anything to add to that topic?
Well, I don't work 18-hour days every day like I used to. That's for sure. And I also.
But are there still some? You said not every day.
Well, there's the odd time that I work when I'd rather not to. I love the 10 o'clock or 1 a.m. emails, because I'll do the same thing if I do wake up and then people get the impression you're constantly working. That sets a good model.
They're trying to get me to email myself and send a summary in the morning.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. So what worries you? What keeps you up at 3 a.m.? What are you worried about?
We still have some concerns around the migration of, right now the CRTC had issued a report that I think it was 22% of people now or something in that area were using Netflix. And we're seeing a huge migration from volume to peak. It's not so much about how much you download, it's about, are you watching TV at Sunday at 10 o'clock? That's the peak demand that I think most residential ISPs will see. And the concern that I have is that, as that number becomes 25, 30, 50, 60%, and we see that peak demand continue to increase, I think there's still some challenges in how the capacity rate has been come up with, and I see that being as an erosion, and that's my biggest concern right now.
Michael, what worries you? What keeps you up?
So clearly for the past 2 weeks, it's been the organizational components of the ISP Summit. Well, thanks. But other than that, I've got to be honest with you, I've done a pretty good job of surrounding myself with an amazing team. And so you better ask them what keeps them up, because they don't keep me up. So, I'm pretty lucky that way. I've got a great team that I work with, and they do a great job. So the network is stable, and that stuff is what used to keep me up, and it doesn't anymore.
Marc, what about you?
Yeah, I'm so exhausted.
DSL reports keeps you up all night.
Yeah, pretty much. You're so exhausted, you fall asleep, and you're just so exhausted, you sleep through the night. No, but, a lot of it revolves around, we're trying to go this way, our customers want us to go this way, and then you can see it coming down the pipe where things are, whether it's incumbent or CRTC or whatever's going on, they're trying to pull this way. So the stuff that really tends to dominate, my sleepless nights are when I can see that something's not cool and it's coming down the pipe, and get on it and get vocal about it, and let's talk it through, kind of thing.
Okay, thanks. But what are the other next things that the industry players can do to work hand in hand to make this a better industry to be in? Michael.
Thanks. The answer is that we're doing a lot of the right things now. The conversations Pete was talking about several people coming together to try and share some costs. The industry is coming together. We are working together. I have a small colo facility at 151 Front. 7 of you are already in there. 7 other ISPs are in there with us. So we're all working together, trying to make sure that we help each other out wherever we can. The one thing that's missing are those of you who are not part of our community yet. You're here, that makes you part of this community, but if you haven't joined officially, we certainly need your help. There's a lot of work to do. We want to change some of the things that we're doing and grow sort of the non-regulatory side of CNOC quite a bit and be a voice that way. So the stronger we can become as a group, the stronger we'll become as individuals.
All right, very fair. Marc, do you want to
Yeah,
add
no,
anything
I
to that?
agree. There's a lot of great things happening, and let's keep making sure that those are happening. Past that, I touched a little bit on some of it earlier, where I think as the years go by, more technology is going to come, and change the dialogue. And there's a lot, things like all this Snowden stuff. Like there's a whole slew of stuff that's coming down the pipe, and I think we're going to be an integral part of that dialogue, and that it's going to require us putting our collective minds together and keeping the dialogue open, frankly. So.
And Pete, what else can the industry do by banding together that individual ISPs couldn't have done by themselves?
Well, I think there's a lot of issues that we've tackled, that wouldn't have been possible without,
But what's next? Is there something on the horizon?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things in progress right now. There's the copyright legislation, there's lawful access, there's E911 coming. There's a lot of other things that are important to this industry, and I think, together, much like John Kern had said before, you can either have a voice or be led, and I think being part of CNOC gives you that voice, and we can use more smart people. I mean, that's a bunch of people that have come together, have learned to trust each other, work together for a common good, and then the rewards has just been amazing.
Okay. Mel, do you have anything to add to that before
Something that we could all cooperatively do together that would increase the values of our business and price fixing.
Oh, no. Okay, thanks very much. Well, and on that bombshell.
As the CNOC lawyer gets ready to rush the microphone.
So, certainly today wasn't intended to be a CNOC infomercial, but it sort of felt like it turned into that a little bit there. Good thing we have it all on film. Remember, there is a sale right now, and if you sign up today, you do get a set of steak knives. So, anyway, I did intend to get to some questions, but we've gone really far over, so perhaps we can just do individual questions during lunch. Thank you very much, everybody. I really glad you could come to our panel. Thank you.